Hi everybody. We thought we'd take you on a little trip that we're going on, and we're going to the Hoover Dam. Right now we're actually in Boulder City.
And there's Lake Mead.
There's Lake Mead right there, which of course, you know, the dam is a part of.
And yeah, and the thing that's unique about Boulder City is that back during when they built the Hoover Dam, it was really, the city was built up around that. And the reason is that's where all the people working on it were basically stationed or put to work. And we were just speaking about this on the way. Boulder City is I think the only city in Nevada where gambling is illegal, because they didn't want, you know, it was a government stimulus package during the Depression, and they didn't want workers going just putting their money right back into the casinos. So it kind of makes sense. So you know, that's kind of a little history of the city. I think it's a really pretty place. I've always told a lot of people that if I ever lived in an area like this, you know, in kind of Las Vegas, I would actually want to live out here, because it's picturesque, it's pretty, it's close enough to the city where you go do things once in a while.
Well, we made it to the Hoover Dam, and this is it. You can see all the water out there, and the generators and everything, but the water level is really low.
Yeah, actually, I was looking into it, because I've been coming here for 4 years, and it was already kind of low 3-4 years ago. They've been having a drought, and they've been having less runoff from the Colorado River, and the water level has dropped from about, I think it's 1,200 meters or whatever it is, to 1,000, which is in the historical average. I was looking at, they've kept records going back to the 30s, and this is at the bottom of the average right now. But in other, I guess, dry periods, like the mid-60s and the mid-30s, it was here. But if we were to dip, say, 10% lower than where we are now, we'd kind of start going in uncharted territory. I think the only other time it was that low was the mid-30s. And, of course, if we went 30 or 40% low from here, we'd be in real trouble. So what we have to see now, I guess, here is that if all the global warming people and climate change people are right, yeah, this is something different, or this is just part of kind of the cyclical up and down and raising and lowering. And I think another problem could be, and I'm not so much of a global warming guy, but more on in terms of Las Vegas now has over 1 million people living there. And so you've got a lot of people, and this is where a lot of the water source comes from, right? So you've got this larger population taking more water, and of course all the casinos and whatever, they use all this water supply. So I think that could be one real problem. We talked about property prices in our last video, and obviously if the water supply for the area dries up, that exactly won't be good for property going forward for Las Vegas.
No, that's for sure. But one thing about coming down here, it's so, I mean, hopefully you can tell in this video just how immensely huge it is. It's really impressive. But
yeah.
It was a program, you know, they built this in the 1930s during the Great Depression as part of Roosevelt's public works program.
Actually, it's Hoover. That's why it's
yeah,
called Hoover.
yeah, Hoover. Yeah. But it was finished under Roosevelt.
It was finished under Roosevelt.
Yeah. And Roosevelt, of course, expanded, you know, this program to stuff in other parts of the country. But actually, they built lots of the.
This was one of the first
public parks and stuff like that.
Yeah, this is one of the first public works projects, and thousands of people worked on it. And as we said, that city, Boulder City, was essentially built because of it. And thousands of people, I think, if I'm correct, I think it was 4,000, actually died working on it, because people were living downstream, and living off the water is very insanitary and everything, and not sanitary. So that kind of hurt it. But it's amazing when you look at it. This is before modern day engineering, computers and the whatnot, and they were able to build this kind of like massive project at that time. And I think another thing that's amazing is not just so much the dam itself, but the location. In terms, we were talking about this when we were driving down here. Really, you're only about a half an hour to 40 minutes away from the Strip in Las Vegas, and you're only about 10 to 15 minutes from Henderson, which is a suburb of Las Vegas. So it's amazing that it's only 45 minutes away, but it's like a whole different world. Here you're in the mountains, the desert, and you know, at the lake and everything. So.
But it's a contrast too to the stuff going on today with the stimulus bill that they passed earlier this year, and they, you know, they're running record deficits, and part of the goal of that was to do, they said they're going to do public works programs like too, but I was reading something the other day, like, actually when they announced it, they said they're going to save or create something like 800,000, 900,000 jobs this year. They've actually only managed to do 150,000 jobs. And part of the reason is most of the money that they spent in that stimulus bill isn't going to public works at all. It's only like 10% that's actually going to be used to employ people, and the rest of it's just going, to pet projects or corrupt deals or who knows what, just basically being thrown away.
Well, see, like, the thing about a project like this is I'm sure it went over budget, and it's a government project, but this actually serves a purpose. It's a dam. It's applying electricity to the area. Where, like you said, a lot of the stuff in the stimulus was like extending unemployment benefits and just like basically social program nonsense that's not really adding any benefit to the economy. Like, one thing I thought they should do, because we're in Vegas, and one stupid pet project they're doing is they're going to build a speed train, from Las Vegas to Disneyland.
Right.
But like a train system makes a lot of sense, because if you go, my dad drove here from Canada, for example, and one reason he wanted to see the country, and he drove here from Toronto, but you can't really see the country in the United States via train, via rail. Where you can see Europe via rail. You can even, Canada even has a rail system that goes across. India does. So I thought one thing you could do if you're going to build public works is build train systems in the Northeast, in Florida. Even build a massive one that goes across the country, instead of just wasting it. And that will reduce the dependence on oil. It will, create another transportation method. But instead of just wasting a bunch of money, I don't want to get too political, but Americans are kind of addicted to their cars too.
Yeah, you can see it right here. I mean, even there's still people driving, big SUVs.
This is the middle of nowhere. Oh, just so you know that, you see a clock over there? That's Arizona. This is the Arizona-Nevada border.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So that's why in the gift shop they have Arizona, like some Arizona paraphernalia. No, but it's actually neat because Arizona's not on daylight savings time, so like half the year on the other side, it's like an hour behind, right? Or sorry, Nevada's an hour behind Arizona, so you're just going back and forth between being an hour behind, right? So, no, but anyhow, we just wanted to show you, this is kind of actually, it's funny because now we're in an area where we have a depressed economy, and we're, the stimulus packages, and you're seeing one of the first, I guess, like kind of stimulus packages during the Great Depression.
That's right.
And another note is, like, remember, this was started by Hoover, who was a Republican, so he was kind of like, it's kind of Bush and Hoover very similar in that both of them were seen as just being these free market, cowboys, but the exact opposite was kind of clear. Both of them kind of interfere a lot in the free
that's
market.
one of the big myths of the Great Depression is that
Hoover did nothing.
Is that Hoover was just a free market, laissez-faire thing, and that actually caused the Depression or made it worse. And then the myth is Roosevelt came in and abandoned this Hoover philosophy, when in fact it's quite the opposite. Hoover actually was a big interventionist, and Roosevelt just increased it. But, by no means was Hoover
it's kind of
a believer in the free
like Bush
markets.
and Obama.
Yeah, it is basically when you think of it that way.
Yeah, no, and it's interesting because again we talk about these projects, and the deficit this year is 13% of GDP, and Roosevelt, I think his biggest deficit actually was in '38. Which was after, other than the war, right? Which was after the economy went back into recession in 37, 38, and it was only 5% or 4% of GDP. So it just shows you the amount of spending. And of course, part of the reason was that basic government expenditures
was so low back then.
Right? So you get someone on a motorcycle coming by, right? So yeah, basic government expenditures were so low that you could ramp it up. And of course, now we've, with the $700 billion TARP bill. Well, $700 billion represents a few percent of GDP, and that's just going to financial companies on top of everything else, right? So, anyhow, we just wanted to take you out here, kind of compare the 30s to now, and, I'm against the stimulus, but hopefully they do something like this that's actually productive, but, I'm not betting on it.
That's what I was hoping the first time.
I really wanted that high-speed train network, but whatever.
Well, we got one going to Disneyland.
So if you come to Vegas, you can go to Disneyland.
When
Thanks, Harry Reid.
Pet deals. But, we'll talk to y'all later.
Right.